Okay, well, hello. Welcome to ENGL 200. Uh, I think you probably had a chance to look at some of the materials for the class at this point or by this point. Let me introduce myself. I am your professor, Brian May. Feel free to call me Professor. That'll keep things simple, won't it? Um, and feel free to call each other by your first names. Feel more than free to do that. We have to create community, don't we? We have to do what we can to make up for the fact of anonymity, which is created by a completely asynchronous online course, such as we are going to have this semester. I've taught this before, let me mention that, and had a lot of success with this class. I felt that my students got a lot out of it, and I see no reason why we should not be able to recapitulate that success this semester and maybe even overgo it and have an even better class, right? Despite the fact that we're not going to be seeing each other too much, and most of the work is going to be done solo, as we know, right? As we know about these kinds of classes at this point. Well, this is, again, an intro video. Welcome, ENGL 200. Make sure you're in the right place. I'm sure you are. That the machine makes sure of that, doesn't it? And please watch this video to its conclusion because it explains a lot of things about how the course is going to be run day in and day out, week in and week out, right? I'll try to keep it brief. I think we've all watched a lot of videos of this kind at this point. So here we go. If you would, in order to make this, I mean, what I will do is, you don't really need to do it, but I mean, feel free to open in a separate window or print out, which I think would be the best way to do it, your copies of the syllabus and of the coursework and whatnot that I might be referring to, just in case you have any notes that you want to write actually on the document. Or you could, of course, always write those on a pad separately. But I'll be going over some stuff. I'll try to do it quickly, as I said before. And you can always go back to this video and rewatch it. But some of this stuff you want to, I think it's mostly self-evident right there on the documents. But you never know. There might be a little clarifying comment that you want to make at this point or that. So without further ado, let's go. Okay, so here is the syllabus proper for Research and Criticism Fall 2022. And there you see my name and my bricks and mortar office, Revis Hall 321. You see my office hours, Tuesdays noon to 1 p.m. and by appointment. Right, Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, that's under Tools. And my guess is you know how to use Collaborate, but if you don't, you can ask me, send me an email message, and we'll talk about it. What that means, okay? I'm saying Blackboard Collaborate Ultra is the meeting spot as opposed to Revis Hall 321 because I'm assuming that you're going to be more likely to, given that you're taking the course remotely, more likely to seek a remote meeting with me than an in-person meeting. Though I'm certainly open to that. I'm open to the idea of a meeting in Revis Hall. We'd have to set it up, though, of course. So I'm not necessarily going to be in my office on Tuesdays from noon to 1 p.m. My point is I will be available, okay, during that time. And I'll be available by, you're simply going to Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, just going to collaborate, as we call it, and joining, okay? Now, give me a heads up if you're going to do it, because I have, trust me, I've spent many Tuesdays from noon to 1 p.m. in the past, and no one has sought my company during that time, which is fine. Many times people have, but it's good to know when somebody's looking for me and planning to seek me out at that time, okay, from noon to 1 p.m. I'll be sure to be there, for example, and I won't necessarily, if I don't hear from anyone ahead of time, be in the Collaborate virtual classroom at noon on Tuesdays, okay? So it really, in a sense, is by appointment that I will meet with you. I just want you to know this one time every week when you don't have to wonder whether I'll be available. I am available. Still, it'd be good for us to set up an appointment because that way you don't join and I have to ask you to leave because I'm having a private conversation with a fellow student in the classroom and I have to ask you to leave and come back in 10 or 15 minutes, right? So if we can set it up by appointment, that's really the way to go. Okay, below the office hours, you see office in quotation marks. You'll see two, by the way, I'm assuming you went to the syllabus. I should have paused. I should have paused above. I'll pause right now. I want to make sure, well, you don't need to. I mean, I've got it presented on the screen. It's the exact same thing. Yeah, so there's no need for you to open another window. But you will see the two email addresses that I have available for students. The first one, which is my NIU email address, is probably the one you want to use. Okay, and it is in fact officially on the syllabus or on the schedule, and also on the course format, where I give you the due dates for various requirements. Okay, like papers or whatnot that you're going to hear about here shortly. You want to send them to that email address. And again, it gets repeated almost every time I ask you for anything. I provide it again. Okay, so the course description, I don't see any great reason to go through that now. My impression is you probably already read it, right? So let's drop down to the required texts, and you'll see A, B, and C, and then a recommended text. The recommended text first, down at the bottom, right? MLA Handbook 8th edition. I used to require this, and what I found myself doing was more often than not sending you to the back of the Norton Introduction to Literature Shorter Edition for a pithy summary of what you can find in the MLA Handbook. I'm still recommending that you buy it as an English major, that you own it. You own a copy as an English major, because it is an indispensable source as you write papers during your undergraduate career. You can always turn to the MLA Handbook and find the answer. So it's a good thing to have up on your desk, right, up in your bookcase. But here's what's absolutely required for the class. Above all, A, the Norton Introduction to Literature, Shorter Edition, 13th edition, with access, edited by Kelly J. Mays. And I've given you the Norton website, for that document, for that book. I've also provided the ISBN number. And as I say here, the with access refers to access to the electronic book form of the text. This is optional. It costs more. If you want to provide yourself with that access, it's not required. Our assignments will require access only to the paperback and only to the shorter edition. By the way, the 12th edition should also work just fine if your roommate took this course from me or from somebody else and it was a few years ago. He or she might have the 12th edition. And I don't think you absolutely need to go out and buy the 13th, okay? Because I think that most of the stuff that's in the 12th also is in the 13th. And when it's not, I should know and should be able to warn you and maybe even provide access to whatever that new document is, or a substitution for it, if not access to it. So in any event, this Norton Introduction to Literature, the shorter edition, edited by Kelly J. Mays, the 13th edition, if you can, if you have a choice, go for the 13th edition. The shorter edition is just fine. Is absolutely indispensable to the course. You absolutely need to buy that book. I hope it's not that expensive. I think that you can buy it used, and I would strongly suggest that you acquire that as soon as possible. Okay? Because again, we're going to be making use of it almost immediately. I'll be providing some links to substitute texts in the very short term to get you over this hump if you haven't gotten the book yet, okay, to get you over that hump the next few weeks. For example, I gave you a link to, it's not even the exact same translation, but it's very close, of Antigone, right, for this week, in case you don't have the Norton Introduction to Literature yet. Because I know a lot of you are on the spot, and are very eager, and you already have this book. You ordered it last week, or you ordered it when I asked you to at the end of last week when I sent you a message and asked you to begin to acquire these books. You probably at least have it ordered by now. So if you have to use some of these electronic links between now and when the book arrives, don't sweat it. Everything will go just fine. Okay, then there's this B, M.H. Abrams and Jeffrey Galt Harpham, a glossary of literary terms, a 9th edition or a later edition. Well, as you see here, I was a bit shocked when I investigated this and found out how much they seem to want. They appear to want. I think they really do want it, okay, for this new edition. and I felt that it was something in the nature of a gouge job. In any event, I shouldn't be saying that officially, but in any event, you will probably be able to get by with an earlier edition, which might be a lot less expensive if you can find it online. Okay, so I'm going to leave that one up to you. I'm hoping that the bookstore which ordered these books has plenty of them lying around, and you can just make things simple and just grab one up for yourself, right? But if they don't, or if you would prefer something a little less expensive, you can, you can go to one of these earlier editions. I really would be okay with that, okay? Because anytime they have something that's really new, first of all, it's rare. The book has not changed much in the past 20 or 30 years. That's how long this glossary has been around, okay? Here, B, the Abrams and Harpham glossary. We're going to be reading a lot of little passages from it, okay? Little entries in the glossary. They have not changed much, okay? Even since that 1997 edition, if you look at my last sentence under B, a URL for which you'll find at the bottom of this info drawer. Okay, I hope it's at the bottom of the info drawer, not at the bottom of this panel that I'm showing you right now, but at the bottom of the info drawer. Go to the information drawer and you'll see it down below. And if you wanted to just use that one, you could probably get by just fine. So I don't know that you absolutely need to go out and buy this book. Once again, isn't it nice to have a book sitting up on your, especially a book like this that could be so useful to you in the future as you continue as an English major, a book sitting up on your desk or sitting up on in your bookcase where you can just pull it down anytime you need it. And it's just so handy and so available. So I want to make those available to you and suggest, and I'm calling it required, you do need access to some edition of the Harpham and Abrams book. But once again, if you choose not to buy the expensive new Cengage edition, you could probably get by with this virtual edition that I've included at the bottom of the information drawer. And then C, amongst the required texts, and here's good news, right? You don't even have to buy this one. Now there's a great new edition out, right? That isn't even on the list here. There's a great new translation that takes us beyond the Muir translation. And I came very close to requiring it for you. But then I thought of how expensive the Norton is and how expensive the Abrams and Harpham glossary is. And I just decided, look, let's go back and use the original Muir translation. And when I find, as sometimes occurs, you will see imperfect passages of translation in the original Muir translation. And if I see something that's egregious enough, I will just supplement it with a passage that I will send to all of you from the new and improved translation. It's not done by Muir or by the Muirs, and make it available to you, okay? If I feel the absolute need to do so. So once again, here, it's not, this one certainly should not cost you any money, okay? I mean, you can get by with, on the question of Abrams and Harpham, you can get by with that virtual edition. And this one is the required edition, is in fact, free University of Penn edition that you can find at that, following that link that I've given you right there. So when the time comes, avail yourselves of this link, right? Okay, well, I've already discussed the recommended text. What's left on this sheet or on this panel is for me to say a word about the DRC statement rate accommodation. So I'm going to invite you to read it. I won't read through it now except to say that the sooner, if you feel that you qualify for an accommodation, the sooner you tell me about it, the better. But what's imperative is that you talk to them first, them being the Disability Resource Center. Okay, so if you're new, I think if you've been around NIU, you probably for a while, and you have sought accommodations in the past, you probably know how to do this. If you're from a different school, you've just transferred, and this is your first semester at NIU, which is very possible. This building, the Campus Life building, is not hard to find, and Suite 180 is not hard to find. You can also send them an email message. Do that as soon as possible if you think that you are going to be seeking an accommodation. Okay, they will get in touch with me, so I'll hear about, the accommodation from them, and then you and I can talk. I'll either contact you or you can contact me. But the important thing is early on, don't wait 2 or 3 weeks, but early on that you get in touch with the Disability Resource Center. Okay, so if you have any questions about any of the material in this panel, do feel free to send me an email message, but that's it for now, and let's press on. Okay, here is the coursework, course format, what have you. I will be providing a master schedule as well that will give you due dates for the various these items below, which of course are listed. For example, numbers 3, 4, and 5. When is the midterm? When are the 1 to 1.5 page assignments? But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But the point is, you're going to get a larger schedule, a master schedule for these due dates, as well as a granular schedule, which I will be presenting to you in a few moments, right? What's going to be on these schedules? Well, one of the things will be a specification, of course, of what I want you to read every week so that you can take part in our weekly discussion board, right? Which my impression is that most of you have had some experience with discussion boards, and you know how to, the how-to of the discussion board, which on Blackboard means you go over to discussions. It's labeled pretty reasonably, and you hit discussions, and it becomes pretty self-explanatory at that point. These are a big part of this course, right? The weekly discussion board participation is actually worth 25% of the class, right? So what this involves is, there's going to be a routine. I'll be talking about this in the context of a particular example here in a few moments, right? Which is going to be the granular weekly, bi-weekly, in the case of the next module, so to speak, the next bit of business that we have to do, or in fact, our beginning bit of business. It will be a bi-weekly schedule that I will present to you here in a few moments. Often they will be weekly. But what these schedules will have on them is, in fact, the weekly routine, right? Which will be usually by Sunday afternoon at 5 p.m. I will have posted a few questions, usually 3 of them. I begin posting them Friday at noon. You choose just one, not all 3. I hope you're listening. Just one of the items. This is all, of course, clarified on the rubric of the items themselves when you actually go to the discussion board. These instructions will be repeated, but you choose just one and you write a substantial, and I mean substantial, 1-paragraph response by Tuesday at 5 p.m. Remember, these will all be posted by Sunday at 5 p.m. and I'll begin posting on the Friday before that Sunday. That Tuesday of that week at 5 o'clock, I would like you to have your substantive and substantial 1-paragraph, 5, 6, 7, 8 sentences full of detailed commentary and quotation from the text in question in response to the question that I ask of your choice. I'd like that by Tuesday at 5 p.m. Then, of course, all of you will have responded, in any typical week by 5 p.m. And there will be a number of these comments, right? Like we have 22 people in the class. I presume there will be 22 such paragraph, let's call them responses and not comments, that will be sitting there visible to you. By Thursday at 5 p.m., what I would like you to do is write a brief comment on one of your classmates' responses of your choice, okay? Which is to say, the second thing I would like you to do every week on the discussion board is, in fact, respond to something that was written by one of your classmates. And that is posted by Tuesday at 5 p.m. And you have until Thursday at 5 p.m. to write that response, which is another paragraph. It doesn't have to be maybe quite as substantive and substantial, quite as long as your own, substantial and substantive response due by Tuesday at 5 p.m., right? But it should be something that is, in fact, as I put it here, constructively critical. Can be a celebration, can be, in fact, a polite disagreement where you quote material, in fact, quote details from literary text in support of your own point. I wanted to mention here at this point in our discussion, or in my monologue rather, on the business of the course, that this weekly discussion board participation grade is, it's the numbers indicate 25%. It's really, really important, isn't it? It's 1/4 of your grade for the semester. Nevertheless, I understand that things arise now and then, right? In the middle of a long semester, towards the end of a long semester. I trust not in the beginning of a long semester. That's not a good time to, in fact, use those 2 weeks, 2 weeks off that I am permitting every one of you, right? No questions asked. You don't need to ask for permission. I will be keeping a close record of who doesn't respond, who does respond, who doesn't respond as well. And if you miss a week, I'm not going to say, hey, where were you? I'm just going to count that as one of your weeks. You miss the second week, I'm not going to ask you, hey, what happened? I'm just going to count that as your second week. And I'm not going to count off. The third time it happens, it's going to matter. And you probably will hear from me, but you might not. I mean, I will just, I've got 22 of you to keep together, to keep track of. And it might be very difficult for me to I probably will get in touch with you if I see that third one, because of course that's at the point where a miss is quite consequential, right? I will have to, in fact, record a 0 for that week. So it will begin to chip away at what may be up to that point a very good discussion board participation grade. So you want to avoid that. You want to be consistent in your participation in our weekly discussion boards. We're not going to have one absolutely every week throughout the semester, but we will probably have 10 or 11 or 12 of them. And you want to make sure that you contribute to all but 2. Let's say we have 12, then you want to definitely do 10. Okay, so enough on that. I think you know about discussion boards and all the rest and how important they are and how to do it. But if you don't, that's something that we could talk about privately. Feel free to send me an email message if you're a little bit bewildered. What am I talking about? I should think that you would be able to figure this out, right? Okay, if you haven't had experience with these before, and I think most of you have had experience. Okay, so number 2, we're gonna have reading quizzes. Now, one of those is due, if you're watching this Thursday afternoon, it is due tonight, right, by midnight. So you're gonna have an experience of this rather quickly here. It's gonna be a reading quiz on Antigone, as you know, which is something that I told you about, reminded you of in some announcements, right? And each reading quiz is going to cover the material assigned for the day on which you have the quiz, or the week on which you have the quiz, plus anything that since the past quiz. Now, that may seem a bit abstract at this point. What does that mean? When you look at the granular schedule, you will know. The other thing is I will be pointing out on the granular weekly schedules that you'll be getting that tell you exactly what you have to do for every week. I will be pointing out exactly what's on the quiz. I'll make that clear as a kind of quick reminder for you. But you should always know that when you have a quiz, it's, well, what's fair game? Everything since the last quiz, right? Usually the quizzes, so what I'm talking about these quizzes, what are they? What will they be? Short answer questions and identifications, okay? And I've already given you an example of such a quiz on, I think it's in the information drawer, so you might want to have a quick look at that. And what it does is give you some examples from this week. You're reading Antigone, it's some examples of the kinds of questions that you'll be asked on Antigone. So have a look at that and you'll know what to expect, the kind of thing to expect. I won't repeat those exact questions, but you'll know the kind of thing to expect on the actual quiz, which will be due on the 20th by midnight. All but 2 of these grades, by the way, will count. Let's say I give you 12. That will work out very well for me mathematically. What that means is I will count only 10. And, obviously I'll count the best 10, not the worst 10, the best 10. I'll drop the 2 lowest grades, which could occur, by the way. You may get one of your lower grades. I hope not both of them, and I certainly hope not more than 2. Could be acquired by you by your just simply neglecting to take a quiz. Just not taking a quiz that week will use up one of your misses. It's a little bit like the weekly discussion board participation grade, giving you 2 weeks off, 2 quizzes off, 2 discussion boards off. So you get 2 quizzes off, they don't hurt you at all, right? So, and you can use them whenever you want. And once again, no questions asked, which when you miss one, I'll just put a 0. What I will do is if you don't use those 2 misses, I'll just drop your 2 lowest grades. So what I found is that most students decide that they just want to take every single quiz and just, have the 10 best count. So that's a good strategy. So that's worth 15% of the grade. Okay, then moving on to the writing portion of the semester. Number three, 10% of these short 1 to 1.5 page assignments that we could call squibs, right, that we'll be talking about as they approach. And those will be due on the Sunday nights in question for that week. You'll have one of these due pretty soon. They'll be due by midnight of that Sunday. Okay. Number four, a short literary analysis, a squib, which becomes a squib plus of a literary work on the syllabus, a draft which we revise and supplement a couple of times as we work towards an understanding of how to write a proper research paper. And what that is one of those 1.5 page assignments, or if neither one of them has really lent itself to such a use, a whole new paper, right? That is another one of those 1.5 page assignments that you develop a bit, okay? And try to turn into something a little bit longer, right? And it's something that we're going to work on, not throughout the entire semester, but through a number of weeks. And it will go through a number of permutations where you'll write something on your squib that will enlarge the squib and sharpen the squib and make it more comprehensive in its ambition and its coverage of the work and the issue that you're treating in your paper. And you'll submit it, and then I will respond. And we'll go through this sequence a couple of times. You get it back from me with my responses, and we'll try to take it to the next level, right, as we develop it a bit. So that's something that you will also see pointed out on, for example, the master schedule, and of course in the weekly granular schedules when they come out. I give one of those out every time a new module is in view, kind of like a new topic for the course comes into view. So it's usually every week or every couple of weeks typically every week you'll get a new one of those granular modular schedules, which I'm about to show you here in a minute. Okay, an example of such. And it points out, okay, it will point out when, like the second, the second expansion of the squib is due this week at Sunday. Yeah. So all this will be made very clear in a timely fashion so that you can get your work done. Okay, so number 5, 15% of midterm exam, a few short writing assignments. And that week, certainly, we will not have a discussion board because in a sense, a discussion board, the writing portion of the discussion board will be taken up by the midterm exam. And then we have a final examination that will be a lot like the midterm examination, but a little bit longer. And that's at the end of the semester. The midterm will come a little bit after the midpoint in the semester. So if you have any questions about the coursework, again, do feel free, if you have any questions about anything, feel free to send me a message and I will get back to you. Okay, here's that granular weekly or bi-weekly schedule that I've talked about. Granular, sometimes I'll refer to it as a granular modular weekly schedule. Sometimes, again, bi-weekly schedule. This is a bi-weekly schedule. For example, this covers the next 2 weeks. This first one, and this is the real thing. This is what is posted in the content drawer, okay, that lays it all out. That's the purpose of this posting that you will get, again, usually every week, but sometimes for the coming 2 weeks. It will tend to be posted on the Friday or Saturday, usually the Friday before the week starts, okay? So, and we'll continue throughout that week or throughout those 2 weeks, if it's a bi-weekly schedule, and it will tell you everything you have to do, okay, in sequence. That's the usefulness of this, as I'm saying, it's down in the, getting down in the grains, right? It's very granular, and it'll tell you in sequence what you will have to do day by day, hour by hour, to be dramatic, as you complete the work for that week or those 2 weeks for the class. Okay, so let's have a look at this one example of it, which is a good example since it's in fact what you're doing, what you're in the process of doing right now, right? By watching this video, you're kind of already engaged in getting your work done for the week, and you're already on the granular weekly schedule and following it, whether you knew it or not. Anyway, over on the left-hand side of the sheet, you will see, or of the panel, you will see the title in the upper left-hand corner of that particular week. Sometimes it'll be like week 1 or week 2 or week 3 or what have you. This is the intro week, so it's kind of week 0, right? Below it, weeks 1 and 2, 8/22 to 9/2, which I'm just arbitrarily imagining that our week began. I'm actually putting this video together on a Tuesday, So yesterday would be the word, the 22nd, right? And it's going to last through the 2nd, this one being 2 weeks, and not just 1 week. It's going to run through the 2nd of September. So I give you the dates over there on the left hand, the dates that are covered, the days that are covered by this particular modular granular schedule, okay? And I just give you over there in the left-hand column, I give you a very coarse description of what you absolutely need to do. Okay, you have to do more than this, but this is something that you certainly have to do, and you have to do every week. I will put what you have to read, right? Like this is the most foundational of the things that you will have to do for that particular module, all right? So for this one coming up, it's Antigone and Trifles. Antigone this week, as you already know. I would not be surprised to hear that you've already begun reading Antigone, right? And then Trifles, which if you drop down to in the middle column, the just before you get those spaces with the stars, you get by Tuesday, 8:30, not 8:30 p.m., but August 30th, 1:59 p.m. Read Glaspell's Trifles, finish it, right, by that time. So that's Trifles. That's, of course, 8:30, which is a week from today being Tuesday. But let's start at the top in the middle column, topics to read and watch. And then over there on the right, the learning activities and assessments in contemporary parlance. Once again, in sequence, let's walk through this a bit, although I think it's pretty self-explanatory. By Thursday, 8:25 of this week, 2 days from today, little under 2 days, hour by hour, going by the hours, from the present moment in which I am speaking, 1:59 p.m. I'd like you to, by 2 o'clock, in other words, I'd like you to have read Antigone, have it all read, right? And I go ahead and you will see that on the granular schedule, I will very often give you some helpful details. For example, in this case, even though I believe I have this on the syllabus as well, you have, or I have, and you have access to a good quality PDF of Antigone, which is not the exact same translation as I mentioned before, or may have mentioned before. I think I was talking about Kafka in a previous panel. But this one, too, is a slightly different translation of Antigone, but that's perfectly fine, because one of the things we're going to be doing this semester is talking about translation and the effect of translation on the ontology, or the ontological status of the that's a big word, big phrase, of the literary text, right? So what I'd like you to do, what I'm telling you here, you can see, is here on the schedule is that by 2 o'clock on Thursday, I expect you to have that book read, right? That play, that ancient play. And then as you will see, following down the column, there in the middle column, by Thursday, 8:25, same day, 11:29 p.m. at the latest, 11:30 the very latest on Thursday, this coming Thursday, I'd like you to watch. This is getting kind of silly and self-reflexive at this point. I'd like you to watch what you're now watching in its completion. The video, PowerPoint, introductory lecture, and give you a link to it. See below the intro vid1. That's a link to what you're now doing, what you're now watching. I'd like you to have it watched by 2 p.m. I hope and I trust it is not yet 2 p.m. on Thursday, this moment that we now occupy together. This says it should be available by noon of this day, perhaps earlier. Indeed, earlier. I'm going to post it today, Tuesday, 8:23. So dropping down, Friday, 8:26 at noon, the discussion questions for the following week begin to be posted on our Blackboard discussions board. Right? I've already talked a little bit about our discussions. As I say, all the questions will be posted by Sunday, 8:28 at 5 p.m. Now, this gets us into this kind of rhythm we're going to be following as we do the course, okay? And what I mean by rhythm is it's the same sequence every week, pretty much, with slight variations. What's going to happen is every week by Friday of that week, this week, we're starting the discussion boards for next week. So it's really, we're not doing a discussion board this week. We're doing one for next week. So the Friday before the week of the discussion board, okay, and that's this Friday for next week's discussion board, which is our first. By noon, I'm going to have posted at least one question on the discussion board so that you can get busy doing your discussions if you're an eager beaver and an early bird. All right?
I'm going to have all questions. Usually they're going to be 3 questions, sometimes 4. Rarely, but occasionally 2. Maybe once or twice I'll just post 2, but usually 3 or 4. All the questions will be posted, all 3 or all 4, by Sunday at 5 p.m. So you have between Friday at noon and Sunday at 5 p.m. to check in on the discussion board and get busy if you want to a little bit earlier than Sunday evening, for example, right? And that's going to be the sequence, week in and week out, except with a few exceptions here, there, and the other place. And it's all going to be laid out in this granular schedule on a weekly basis too, just in case you forget about the sequence. I don't think you're going to be so used to it very, very shortly, okay, that you're going to barely need to consult this granular schedule with respect to the discussion board sequence, right? Okay, now you probably have some questions about what to do. I'm just mentioning this in passing. It has nothing to do with this granular weekly or biweekly schedule. You may have some questions about what exactly I expect on the discussion boards. Don't worry about that right now, okay? I may have said something already earlier in this video, but I will be giving you very explicit instructions, okay, on the first discussion board. So you'll get very explicit discussions. You'll be told everything you need to know about what I want you to do on the discussion board. The gist of it is to write a substantial paragraph. I mean, 5 or 6 sentences. I want it to be substantial. And I want it also to be substantive. And what I mean by that is I want it to engage with the material. I want it to answer the question, and I want it to consult the material the question covers. In other words, it might be a question about Antigone, and it will require that you go in and read Antigone very carefully and go back to it in order to answer the question. And I would like you to quote from Antigone, okay, in your question. That is a requirement. And again, this will all be laid out for you on the discussion board. Each discussion board will have the instructions repeated, but you'll very soon know what's expected of you. Okay, so we don't need to worry too much about it in this moment. The big thing is a substantial paragraph. And the second big thing is I want you to quote the text and discuss details of the text. Get very detailed, okay, as you answer your questions. Give evidence. I want you to offer a substantial paragraph of argumentation, right? And when will that be due? Well, look over on the other side and drop down past all those stars. And you say, you see rather, by Tuesday, 8:30, 5 p.m., this is why I want you to have everything read, okay? Trifles, for example, I want you to have it read by 2 o'clock so that, by 5 o'clock that afternoon on Tuesday, and you will be in a position to post a discussion answer response. You'll have 3 hours after you've gotten done with trifles, if you follow my schedule, to then write up the answer if you haven't done so already. You don't have to wait till 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday, because you'll have these questions much earlier. As I said, by Sunday afternoon at 5 p.m., you will have the questions. So you could write up your response on Sunday evening if you'd like. But the deadline is 5 o'clock on Tuesday of every week. This first discussion board, it's 8:30, right? The 30th of, that's a week from today. I'm talking on Tuesday afternoon. By 5 o'clock, I would like your discussion answer response due. That's when it's due, and I would like it posted by then. To post it, I think you know how to do that. You go to the discussion board, which is under discussions, and you want to hit reply, okay? And you want to post that paragraph. By the way, I suggest that you write the paragraph separately. You don't do it right there on the, in the box that's provided with you under reply. What I would do is write it up like an MSW separately and get it just right, and then, copy and paste it under reply. That's what I would do, because I've had students who've actually written up a paragraph and then something goes wrong and they lose the material that they've been working on. And that would be a really miserable thing, wouldn't it? And of course that can happen when you're on MSW as well, can't it? But I think it's less likely to happen than it is with this very complicated website called Blackboard. So anyway, that's how I suggest you do that. By 5 o'clock p.m., the Tuesdays of every week, except again, there's very few exceptional weeks when we won't be doing a discussion board. I would like you to have your discussion, answer, and response posted, right? And you see what I'm calling it over there. I'm even giving you a little bit of instructions here in passing. A substantial substantive. I didn't include that word, but I can't help but mention it. A substantial paragraph that is well written, makes claims, and supports its claims by citing and quoting textual evidence, right? Now, what else happens on Tuesday? Drop down just below that. That's Q2. Now, you've already been through this sequence once because I have you doing a quiz this Thursday. Normally, the quizzes are going to be on Tuesdays. They're going to be posted on Tuesday early, and you're going to have it due either Tuesday at midnight. Sometimes I'll wait until Wednesday to make it due, but it'll typically be posted on Tuesday. And this next week, coming up, Tuesday, 8:30, no later than midnight, under assessments, you have 30 minutes to do your quiz. The reason why I say, again, there is, if you go up to the top, all the way to the top to the right-hand column, Thursday, 8:25 at midnight at the latest, and I'm going to post it tomorrow, 8:24 by 8 p.m., begin quiz 1. Okay, what is this all about? This, you just got to start it by 11:30 if you want to post by 12. Well, what I'm saying is you've got 30 minutes before your quiz auto submits. Okay, I don't give you unlimited amounts of time once the quiz has begun. Okay, so you've got 30 minutes to complete the quiz. Once you've begun it, it will submit whatever you do, even if you're in the middle of trying to answer one of the questions, it will submit, auto submit after 30 minutes are up. By the way, once you've opened it, you can't stop the clock and going like, oh, now I know what the questions are. Now I'll just read selectively and go find the answers over the course of the next 6 hours and then come back and finish it. It doesn't work that way. The way it works is once the clock starts, you have 30 minutes. So you need to get the reading done before you begin the quiz. And then once you've begun the quiz, 30 minutes later, the quiz is over and it's submitted. And there's no going back at that point. Okay, once you've started it, you've started it. So I want you to be aware of that right up front, right? Now, quiz 1, we're still there at the top of the right-hand column, is going to cover Antigone and Antigone only. And I've given you as I think I mentioned earlier, I've given you a little practice quiz or a kind of sample quiz. It's in the information drawer, all right? So you should know what to expect on this first quiz. Okay, so then you'll see this week, we've got one on Thursday because we just started. Typically, it'll be an earlier week. Earlier in the week, these quizzes will be due, Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Next week, I've got a quiz for you. If you drop down again, Q2, Tuesday, 8:30, no later than midnight. And it will be due by midnight. You want to begin by 11:30. You know why now, right? And the second quiz will cover trifles. And I'm not including the essays read by Friday. Which you look over there, it's one item I left out when I went down the left-hand column. You see by Sunday, it's the second to last of the major items before all the stars. By Sunday, 8:28, 5 p.m., read the following essays in the Norton. So I would expect you to read those essays. They're not going to be on this first quiz. Sometimes the essays that I have you read are going to be, the supplemental readings of whatever kind are going to be on the quiz, but I will let you know. I will always let you know in the granular, weekly or bi-weekly, the granular modular schedule. So you will never be taken by surprise. Okay? So I hope all this is cogent. I'm going on and on here, probably belaboring the obvious, but I wanted to make sure you knew what to make of this document, this panel, that you're going to get, as I said, you're going to get a new one every week. Notice how at the bottom, on the right-hand side, all the way at the bottom, it says, end of the intro, move on to module 1. Well, at the end of module 1, it's going to say end of module 1, move on to module 2, and it's going to invite you each time to move on to the next module, which means you're going to have a whole new window, a whole new drawer, rather, is a better way of putting it, in content. In the content, the larger content drawer, you're going to have a whole new little sub-drawer to open in content for every module. And I think we have something like 11 or 12 modules over the course of the semester. Okay, so when it says move on to module 1, that means you're done with this granular weekly or bi-weekly schedule, and you can move on to the next one, because the next one is going to be in the next module drawer. All right? So I hope it doesn't sound too hopelessly complicated at this point. You're gonna catch on real quickly uh, to how this works, and you'll be able to navigate the course, I think, just fine. One thing I left out, just something to say very quickly, although again, when you get to the discussion board, you'll have instructions that will make sure that you don't miss this. Notice that the last item before the boldface stuff at the bottom for the all in caps, the last item in the right-hand column. By Thursday, 9/1, 5 p.m., comment on a fellow student's answer response. That comment is due. To comment, hit comment, just as to reply or to offer your discussion answer response, which is due on Tuesday at 5 p.m., you want to hit reply. In this case, you hit comment. Right? You'll see you have separate buttons, and you want to hit the comment button. And what that does is set it off so that it's not taken as nobody would take it for your actual discussion answer response. They would see it as a comment on a fellow student's answer response. So what is this all about? What this is about is you've already contributed Tuesday by 5 o'clock to the discussion board. What I would like you to do, you've contributed your own original discussion answer response to one of the items. What I would like you to do is by Thursday at 5 p.m., comment on one of your fellow students' answers or responses, which they have posted by 5 o'clock. So you're given on Tuesday. So you're given 2 full days to write up this comment, right, on a fellow student's answer response. Well, what is it? What do we mean by comment? Well, what we mean by comment is we mean something a lot like the original discussion answer response, right, in this sense that it's evidentiary. It is a response to, or it's a comment on one of your fellow students' little paragraph, right, in which you quote the text, maybe to support, maybe even to attack is too strong, right, but maybe to correct or enlighten your fellow student who maybe missed something, and you would like to helpfully call it to your fellow student's attention. So this gives us a chance to get some conversation going between different members of the discussion board, different contributors to the discussion board. And you're gonna kind of like this. You know, people get very comfortable with this. You'll start calling each other by your first names. And you have responses to responses. You'll have comments on comments, which is perfectly fine. But I again would like the comment not to be, Tiffany, I loved what you had to say in your answer response. That was just so smart and so good. And I'm now looking at the book in a new way. Now, what you want to do with these comments is, in fact, either, again, correct or right, like augment, or in one way or another, maybe even complete a point made by one of your fellow students. What we want is you to go back to the evidence and bring something to the attention of the person on whose answer response you're commenting on. Bring something to that person's attention that person missed, either to support that person's point or maybe even to challenge it. So here again, you're going back to the work and you're digging into the work and you're finding evidence and you're sharing it with the group. Okay? Well, this discussion of this particular panel has gone on long enough, so let's move on. Yeah, so we're back to the Kafka Metamorphosis opera. Can you believe it? The Royal Opera House. Maybe we'll listen to that, a portion of it later on semester. Yeah, well, I'm going to let you go now. If you have any questions what to do next, let me know. My first response will be probably take a look at the pre-module, because you probably can figure it out. I'm guessing that most of you are not going to have a lot of difficulty, negotiating your way through and determining what it is that's being asked of you. So take a good look at it now before you send me a message, but don't hesitate to send me a message if one persists beyond a close look at the information that's been set up for you, okay? I'm looking forward to a great semester with you all, and as you can tell, I'm very excited about the possibility of reading Kafka with you and sharing this extraordinary work of 20th century literature with you.